Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Brownie from the Youngsters. Welcome to yet another installment of Market Watch. Basically, the little mini-series that I do where I talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market more in depth. And in this particular episode, I'm going to be analyzing recent changes, or very dramatic changes that have been happening to the TCG in response to the emergency list that went into effect yesterday, February 8th, 2016. And because of all the wild changes, I'm dubbing this the Market Watch Chaos Edition. Because it's really just big, like, we haven't seen this I don't think I've ever seen so many Yu-Gi-Oh! Market changes happen in such a brief amount of time. We had the weird period in between November and December where like stuff was flying all over the place because of the November 9th list, and because the format struggled to identify itself with Cosmo being there, and then 4-inch Pendulum, and then Magicians and all that. And then now we have the emergency list is changing everything again. Not very long after that, so it's been pretty insane. But without further ado, just to get right into the discussion. Beginning off with the Market Watch, we're going to talk about I guess my favorite deck to talk about, or the deck I always find myself talking about, is the Cosmo deck. A Dark Destroyer moved from a $60 card to $120 like the day after the emergency list dropped. And people were kind of losing their minds about it, like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Because a lot of people thought Cosmo was like automatically the best deck with Pepe out of the picture. And I'm here to say that that is very, very close to the truth. Pepe is gone. That is true, but Perform Pal isn't. I do think that Perform Pal is still going to be there, but it's not going to be anywhere near where Pepe was. A large reason why Cosmo Dark Destroyer's price is somewhat justified at this point is because the Perform Pal deck runs no defense. So that's a really big thing. Like Cosmo can just absolutely kill you when you're not watching. It's really good against the Monarch deck, which is a really popular deck right now. So it's a no-brainer why this deck has gotten so much hype and why Dark Destroyer is so expensive. He's, of course, set secret from the old rarity system that's a mandatory 3 of, and that set wasn't very popular, so not very much product was open, so there were only a few Dark Destroyers out there. So that brought Dark Destroyer to around 110 right now, and I don't imagine it's going to change anytime soon unless a either very good or very poor turnout at a YCS or like a major event happens anytime soon. The next major event in the TCG, I believe, is the Ultimate Duelist Series Invitational. I believe that's the weekend of the 20th and the 21st of February. I think once we see what happens at that event, we'll be able to discern where Cosmo is going to be going into the future. But I will say for sure, maybe Dark Destroyer's price is like sort of justified because of the power vacuum that came out after the list. But Farm Girl isn't. Farm Girl's $25 right now. That's way too much. With the fact that she's actually like a 1 or 2 of. She's not a mandatory 3 of like Dark Destroyers anymore. And we see a constant trend of whenever you have one card in an archetype that's like so unbelievably expensive, a lot of the other cards in that archetype tend to be super, super cheap. I guess a somewhat example of that is the Necros deck, but I guess that's sort of different because they had the cards, the most expensive cards in that deck were a bunch of short prints. But it's a similar principle that Dark Destroyer is going to suck up all the value in the Cosmo deck. I guess a reason why is because that like it's like a energy activation, or here's a better way of explaining it. People, whenever they're trying to build Cosmo, they look at Dark Destroyer and they're like, that's when they're turned off. So like their chief concern is getting Dark Destroyer, so he's the one who's going to be the most expensive, I suppose. Maybe that's not the best way of explaining it, but essentially the gist of it is that Dark Destroyer is going to suck up all the value. Farm Girl is going to drop all the other Cosmo cards. Tin Can's already cheap. Farm Girl is probably going to drop to like 10, 15. No reason why it should be 25. Moving on to the next deck. Talk about the Monarchs. All the cards in the Monarch structure deck are going to be dirt cheap since they're from a $10 structure deck. But the cards I'm talking about in particular are Caius the Mega Monarch, Thessalos the Mega Monarch, and Fog King. So these are all cards. None of these cards. Okay. Caius and Thessalos, they're not mandatory. They're just really, really good. But Thessalos is like $14 right now, both the Mega Pack and the Primal Origin print. And Caius the Mega Monarch is like 19 to 22-ish right now for both Mega Pack and Secrets of Eternity print. That's a lot. That's a lot for 2 cards that are just like a 1 or 2 of. I understand Monarchs are really popular, but that's just too much for cards that really aren't mandatory. they're at their high point right now. If you have these cards, Thessalos or Caius, if you have these cards and you don't plan on using them, go and drop them. If you plan on using them, yeah, I recommend like you hold on to them, of course, since you're going to be using them. But it also brings up Fog King. Fog King is a mandatory 2-3 of in the Monarch side deck because it's very, very important in the Monarch mirror. Because you drop it and you just auto win. And that's pretty nice. The secret rare one is like, oh man, it's like 33. I'm pretty sure the one from the battle pack round 2 is about 17 or so. I believe that that's at its high point as well. Monarch, all the Monarch stuff that isn't in the structure deck is at its high point right now. So long as it isn't like Magic's Fiend where it can be played in like other decks. Stuff that's strictly Monarch is all at its high point right now. So if you don't plan on playing Monarch anytime soon, go and get rid of it. I saw Dante from the Duelist Alliance spike to 40 2 days ago. I was like, what? And I looked at the Mega Pack, and the Mega Pack copy was still $15. So I was like, wait, the Duelist Alliance is $40, and the Mega Pack one is $15? What's going on? Now, I had predicted that Dante was going to have a much larger price rise because I thought the deck was going to be super solid last format. I was sadly mistaken, and I have no idea where the deck is going to stand post-emergency list. I would imagine it's going to fare a little bit better, but maybe not since Cosmo and Monarch are going to be the two most played decks, and Dante Dante's not good enough to get over those Dark Destroyers. Dark Destroyer is too good. Dude, you know that card can't be targeted? Why can't that card be targeted? Every time I see Dark Destroyer dropped against me, I have to pick up the card and just like double check, make sure I'm not reading it wrong. I'm like, yep, that card can't be targeted. No, but seriously, the Dante from Duelist Alliance is like $26 right now. I don't know why. I really have no idea why. The only reason why Dante would rise at all would be either A, the deck would be doing super well, which it's not, or B, Beatrice is nuts, and that has not happened. And the earliest that Beatrice can come is Shining Victories in May. So I don't know what's going on. If you have Duelist Alliance Dantes, go and drop them. If you have Mega Pack ones, I recommend you hold on to them though because of Beatrice and Beatrice only. That's a pretty big card. If that comes in Shining Victories, it'll shake things up. But otherwise, this is like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. Oh, also Rubik. Rubik at the Burning Mist is like 18, $19. He's really expensive. I would consider getting rid of them if you have them. That wouldn't be such a bad idea. But of course, we have to talk about the main deck of the day, which is the Performer Pal deck. The performing will not end. The show must go on. I kind of have to. So after the emergency list dropped, Pendle Sorcerer dropped to about 25 to 30 immediately. People were convinced that the deck is dead, and it's not unjustified that they thought that because the hits were pretty severe. But when you combine the Perform Pal engine with a Magician engine, it's really, really solid, especially with Draco Faceoff still at 3. The fact there's only one Luster Pendulum, you still have access to Luster Pendulum like relatively easily, because if you play Draco Faceoff, you're getting Luster Pendulum no matter what if you haven't drawn it yet, because even if they hit Vector Pendulum, it's still essentially the action deck. You can Pendulum Summon it. So Luster Pendulum is still really easy to get to, so it going to 1 doesn't hurt the deck too much. But guys, Pendulum Sorcerer is broken. Have you read that card? The errata helps so much too, because you can play cards like Chicken Game in that deck, and you can pop your own Chicken Game after you use it using Pendulum Sorcerer and draw a card. So that way you can deal damage to your opponent, since it has that clause where like if your opponent has lower life than you, they don't take damage. And then you can search, and they can't abuse Chicken Game next turn as well. The Perform Pal deck is still really, really strong. It just doesn't have as much resilience before. It can do one really big power play, but it can't do a power play every single turn. Sometimes it can, but for the most part, like when it makes stuff outside of Ignister, it really can't. By the way, speaking of Ignister, the Draco Slayer engine is still obscene. All right, Ignister is so broken, and they drop like 2 Ignisters, 3 Ignisters, and then they're starting to play Soul Charge so they can bring them back. It's pretty nuts. This deck is not gone by a long shot, especially with cards like Instant Fusion, and as I said, Draco Faceoff keeping in the game. This deck's not going anywhere. This Pendulum's too good. I don't think it's gonna be the best deck next format. It's too bad against Monarch. It's the hits on the deck were just too severe. But I think in terms of when looking at it from a market perspective, I think it's safe to say that Pendulum Sorcerer does have a little bit more room to rise should the deck do well at the Ultimate Duelist series. It's about $40 right now, which is actually a little bit more on the pricey side. But just keep that in mind that if it happens to do well at that event, I recommend you pick this deck up. Plus, there's a pretty solid chance that they release some of the hits on the official list in about a month or so. So that's something good to look forward to. Now, I've talked about two cards that rise in price according to the price app, which I'm sure most of you have, and that app is really good for discerning stuff that's decreased in value. It's usually pretty late when stuff rises in value exponentially. But the two cards that I saw on this app it was Mystical Ref Panel and Trial and Tribulation. Now, Trial and Tribulation, Trial and Tribulation I believe is $10, and Raphael is $20 right now, I believe. A little bit of backstory on these two. Raphael was $7 or so for the longest time, and then it jumped to $20 once the Monarch Structure deck was announced. So the Monarchs are pretty much the chief cause of that. Trial and Tribulation has always been up and down, okay? Because people were like, oh wait, you can play this card in Klee, and then it jumped up and like, oh wow, you can play it in Klee, and then people realized it just like wasn't that good. It was kind of a win more, and so it dropped down. And then people realized, oh my god, you can play it in Necros, so it jumped up, and then people realized it just wasn't that good in Necros. It was kind of a win more, so it fell back down. Trial and Tribulation is the same thing in Monarchs, especially with a deck that already is notorious for bricking. Trial and Tribulation is terrible. If you have any copies of these, get rid of them now. Mystic Ref Panel, or Raphael, but it looks like it's spelled Ref Panel, is less. I'm less sure as to how impactful that card is. But it's. Allow me to explain. I think the best way to discern like whether or not this card is good is to explain exactly what it does, because its wording is weird. It says activate only when a spell card that targets one player is activated, and that's kind of weird. You don't really target players in the game. And when I first read that card, I thought of cards like Ukazi that inflict 800 damage to a target player, like your opponent. But I looked it up, and these are the 5 instances where you can use Mystical Ref Panel. It is an A. You can when a increase one player's life points. B, inflict direct damage to one player's life points. C, allow one player to draw a card from the top of their deck to the hand. D, cause one player to discard from the hand. And E, which is different from the OCG for some reason, modify the actions one player can take, such as Mesmeric Control. Essentially, all this says that's a pretty far-reaching thing. People are using this against Pantheism, or the Pandeity card in the Monarch deck, because they discard and then you chain Ref Panel. And then they go super neg. It's actually kind of solid. Do I think this card is going to keep its price? It really depends if this becomes a staple strategy. I highly doubt it, since in a deck like Monarch where you already brick so much, so Monarchs themselves aren't going to be playing this card. But I wouldn't be surprised if some other decks start taking this in, because if you take away the card advantage from Monarch, it really is tough for them to keep going. So we'll just have to see how this goes elsewhere. I have to talk about Solemn Strike. A big reason why I think Solemn Strike, and this is why the price app that I'm sure many of you use is not perfect, is because when cards slowly rise in price, like very, very, very quietly, it doesn't really catch it. I think Solemn Strike is one of those cards it's been slowly rising. It's about $60 right now. I think it has even more room to rise should the hits on the next list be somewhat consistent and they don't hit strike. Because what's going to happen now is, because of the power vacuum that's happening in the game, and Monarchs and Cosmo are going to be taking over, that card is going to be really, really solid against those decks, because they're very normal summon centric, I suppose. I know like Cosmo has E-Tally and Monarchs have 1-for-1 for the most part. These decks are very, very heavily reliant on their normal summon. They can't like do so many things in one turn like Pepe could. Solemn Strike is very, very powerful against both these decks. And with these two decks being the two most powerful, a lot of decks that I've been seeing have been maining 3 of these. Even like the Perform Power deck, even though that's such a combo-based deck, they're still maining 3 of these just because of how good it is against both Cosmo and Monarch. Honestly, this is one of the Cosmo's a pretty hard deck to side deck against, or it's a pretty hard deck to main deck to hate against. But the last effect of Solemn Strike, where you can pay 1,500 to negate a monster effect, or sorry, it's when a monster effect will be activated, negate and destroy, such as when they activate a pilot. That is critical, absolutely critical. And that's why Solemn Strike actually, I would not be surprised if that rises another $10 or so. If you don't have some, I highly recommend you look into it soon, should it not be hit on the next ban list. Also, Twin Twister took a rise to $10. I'm not entirely sure why that is, because I would imagine that the reason why Twin Twister rose is because the prevalence of Monarch, because a lot of decks that aren't Monarch need to be able to play and like use their extra deck, and Twin Twister like ensures that, like, okay, I got you, we'll just kill that domain, like you're good to go for a turn. That's probably the reason why Twin Twister is shot up to $10. I thought it'd stay at like 5 to 6 for a while, but it just went straight up to 10 because it hit the main deck. So I don't really, so long as Monarch is here, I don't really see it moving anywhere. It's one of those cards where, like, if you're playing a deck that sucks against Monarch, you're probably gonna need these. So I would look into that. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is also another card I really have to talk about, and unfortunately, one of my more favorite cards in this game. Unfortunately, I have to declare that Ghost Ogre, I don't think the time is right for you. She's about $60 right now, and I think that's actually a little bit high for her. Now, I remember I was preaching. I was like, guys, get your Ghost Ogres. It's going to be so good. And then now I'm preaching, like, guys, get rid of your Ghost Ogres. Remember, I could not see that emergency list coming. No one could, okay? That we're just shocked, okay? With Pepe out of the scene, and with the Perform Pal deck switching less into activate cards and Pendulum scales, yes, they still have Monkey Board and Luster Pendulum, but Luster Pendulum is very rarely activated in the Pendulum scale, and Monkey Board is the one instance where you can get them with Ghost Ogre. I don't really see Ghost Ogre sucks against Monarch for the most part. It sucks against Cosmo. There are some instances where it's good against Monarch, but it's not very reliant, I suppose. The thing about Ghost Ogre, though, that you have to keep in mind is that the reason why, even though it could get good should some sort of new Pendulum deck come out in the OCG, because that's the trend with Ghost Ogre. It's good against certain Pendulum decks that activate in the Pendulum scale. That's just where Ghost Ogre shines, okay? But there isn't any deck like that that's going to be coming out anytime soon that we're really gonna need Ghost Ogre. So I recommend you drop it now, and maybe by the time Megatons roll around, if it's reprinted, it'll be okay. But hey, if some sort of crazy Pendulum deck is leaked and is about to come out of the OCG, then we may have to reconsider it. But for now, we gotta get rid of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. My last card, and this is a card I think you should pick up. Archon Eccentric, my favorite card from the year of 2015. Why do I think this card is pretty solid? Because it's really solid against the Monarch deck. It has that double utility that I really like. But I mean that, like, you can summon it as a monster to kill one of their big annoying guys. It outs Vanity's Fiend, does not out Majesty's Fiend though, and it can out Domain, which is pretty solid. But I think Archon Eccentric will only be played for the most part in Pendulum decks. But the Perform Pal deck, I think is going to pick up more steam once people figure out exactly what it is that they're doing. She's about $20 right now. That's pretty cheap. As we've seen from early in this list, core set secrets without the new Breakers of Shadow rarity system, those cards can rise in price exponentially. Archon Eccentric is one of those cards. It has potential to be pretty solid, so that with being $20, and we saw it, like, it was like at $60 at one point, or 70. I don't think it's going to go back up to there, but it could easily jump another $10 to $20. So if you see these, I wouldn't buy them out, but if you see these at your local card shop, if your buddy is trading them, I would recommend trying to get them off him if you can get them from him cheap. And I guess last thing I have to talk about is this picture right here. This is a picture from I believe the Nuremberg Toy Fair. Essentially, it just Konami went here and just showed up a bunch of product, and we already knew that the Pendulum Domination deck, which is the deck, the thing on the left, we already knew that was going to be a thing when we saw some other photos of it about a few weeks ago. But I didn't really think much of it until I looked up the the deck list for the Pendulum Domination deck, and that deck does not play the Leonidas card. Now the DDD deck is actually like pretty solid. And it plays DDD King Leonidas at 3, and that's the super rare from Dimension of Chaos. The fact that card's mandatory 3 of, and that deck's going to be coming out probably around May or June, I would imagine, since it hasn't been announced yet. Leonidas is about $5 right now. I wouldn't be surprised if that card were to jump. Should this structure deck come out, try to pick up some of those cheap, because Yu-Gi-Oh players typically wait to the last minute in order to get some of the other cards they need outside the structure deck. Other cards, because the reason why I bring that up is because it's highly unlikely they're going to reprint them in there because they've been following the same exact OCG list card for card for High Speed Riders, Wing Raiders, and then for the structure deck, the Synchron Extreme, Master of Pendulum, and the Monarch structure deck. The exception being Beast Eyes, which was not reprinted because he's a jump promo. That's a completely different scenario. It's highly unlikely that they're going to reprint Lean Knights, so pick them up. Also, other cards in that deck that are being give really good chances of being reprinted: Curry Bandit, Tour Guides from the Underworld, and Allure Darkness. I actually have no idea how much Allure is, but I just saw that. I was like, so I might as well mention that. But so look out for the announcement of that deck. And so that'll do it from here. I guess the next Market Watch is going to be talking about premium gold once we get more news about what reprints are going to be in here, because there are like 80 reprints or so in there, so that'd be very interesting to see. But I don't know, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below of some of these cards, and I guess I guess we could start talking about like what do you think of where the top tiers are going to stack up. I might get around to a top 10 list for the post emergency list, but I've been kind of I don't know. We've been relatively inaccurate lately, so I'll have to like take some time to really think about it, make sure I get it right, or I might just pass on this one because I don't know. It's too chaotic. That's why it's the Market Watch Chaos Edition. But oh well. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.